Welcome to the thenolaroexperien podcast. Raw, honest, relatable experiences that help us grow. Are you subscribed? If not, what are you waiting for? Go! And please, leave a review and help us grow while you're at it. Thank you.
On today's episode, I am going to be sharing another story with you all. Y'all know I have a lot of stories. Snakes in relationships. I'm going to find out what I know that you didn't know, the SOA Q&A, and of course, today's happy habit. All right, so I got a story, y'all. And it took me, I think, you know what, I'm not even gonna put a time frame on it, but it took me a long time to even get to the point where I felt comfortable enough to share this story. And I think I needed a moment to process what had happened, to figure out what I wanted to do with the situation. And although at the very beginning I was like, oh, I'm done with this. I'm not dealing with this person anymore. I don't deserve this. You know, I wanted to give myself enough time to process it fully so that when I make my final decision about what I wanted to do with the situation, I will be confident. Because there are times, especially in relationships with people that you're very close to, you kind of backslide, right? You go back. You're like, da-da-da, in the beginning. Emotions are riling up, and you just make decisions on the spot that you end up going back on. I didn't want to do that. Although I don't typically operate that way, I still wanted to give myself a moment. And I've decided that this is not a person that I would ever have a relationship with again unless some very specific things happen. And I kind of don't see those things happening. And I'm going to explain why. Hear me out. So I am going to refer to the people in this story with character names. Let's just go with Jack and Jill, right? We're going to go with Jack and Jill, although Jack is a female. Jack is a woman. Stay with me. Stay with me. So I was apartment hunting, and Jack was with me while I was looking at an apartment. Really beautiful apartment, very spacious, amazing area, just really dope. Jack, for a while, was telling me, for months actually, probably about a year, had been telling me I am uncomfortable with my living situation. I am very unhappy. Certain things keep happening where I live, and I don't want to be here anymore. At a certain time, I am going to start looking for an apartment. So that's what Jack told me, that she's going to start looking for an apartment. And I was like, yeah, go for it. I think, you know, for your peace of mind, you should definitely go out there and find your own spot, because based on what you're telling me, it does seem like you're going through a lot in your home, right? So that happened before I started apartment hunting. So as she was with me in the apartment looking around, I was like, yeah, I see this vision for the place. I see this vision. And Jack came to me and said, I have an idea. I have a proposal. How about I move in with you, and this is how much money I can contribute on a monthly basis. Me having this background information about her stories and her situation at home, I was like, I completely see why she would use this opportunity to kind of move out of the space that she's in. We can do it for 1 year. That's not a problem. And we're very close. I felt like we would get along very well. We had a lot of things in common. And I was with it. This is someone that I love dearly, love deeply. I protect, right? So even though she was the one who came up with the idea to move in, she said, you know what, I need to speak with my family about this. Give me 1 week. This was on the weekend. 1 week would be the following weekend. So I was like, all right, next weekend, we'll make the decision. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going through the week, and I'm getting information that her family is not cool with it. As a matter of fact, I even spoke with someone, one of her family members, and I mentioned it, and the reaction was kind of like, oh, really? The vibe wasn't right. I could tell. So I find out that the rest of the family, they're not really with it. People are, even one person even stopped speaking to her about it. Like, they don't want this move-in to happen. And I was kind of taken aback, like, what's the reason? But there is no background story or any type of beef or any type of dark spots, dark pockets or issues or anything that would make me say, oh, maybe it's because such and such had happened. Maybe it's because I had said this, or maybe it's because I had done that, or maybe it's because this situation popped off. It was nothing like that. There was nothing that made me say, oh, this makes sense. Maybe this is why they don't want it to happen. But they had their reasons, and to be honest with you, I did not try to find out. I just left it as that. Getting closer towards that following weekend, another bit of background story. My man and I, we had planned that we would move in together. We did not plan to do it in that moment, though. But getting closer to the weekend, we talked it over and decided, you know what? Let's do it this time. Let's just go ahead and do it now. So we decided that we would move in together. And at this point, it's probably about Thursday or so. So I gave her a call and I said, you know what? I am, I'm sorry, but I do have to switch things around a little bit. I'm going to do this move with my man instead, which was 1,000% better for my family at the time, right? She said, okay, thank you for letting me know. And she said right then and there, I'm a little bit sad about it. I'm a little bit disappointed, but I get it. I completely understand. I do think that would be a good move. About a week later, I get a phone call from Jill. Stick with the story now. Remember, it's Jack and Jill. There's two characters here. And once again, even though I'm saying Jack, it's a girl. So Jill called me up and Jill said, Nola, I'm hearing something that I don't like, and I just want to talk to you about it because, the three of us are really close, and Jack is saying some things, and it does not sound like you, but I still want to check to make sure that everything is okay. So I was like, all right, what's up? She said, Jack called me and Jack said that you asked her to move in with you. And as she was trying to gather her bearings and check in with her family and figure out if she should do it or not, you dropped her for your man. And I thought, the first thing in this story is I never asked her to move in with me. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even considering it. It wasn't on my radar. I wasn't even thinking about that. She brought that idea and that proposal to me. So for you to even switch that part around and say that I came to you and asked you, that one was a little off-putting. I was already not feeling that. So I listened to the rest of the story, and the rest of the story consisted of more lies and more twists that she decided to put in there to make me look crazy. And what also happened there was Jack kept doing shady things that I wasn't even aware was happening, right? Shady things were happening behind my back that Jack kept doing. And she used the fact that that I asked her to move in as an excuse as to why she was doing the things and taking the action that she was taking, the actions that she was taking. One of the things that happened that I recall was us being in a car together. I'm in a car with Jack. I don't remember who was driving, but we're both sitting next to each other in the front seat, in the car. And she was communicating with somebody, but in that moment, she was talking about me. And the move was happening. She was in my face, happy for the move. I'm going to help you. Let me know what you need. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be packing. Can you guys help me pack? Yeah, I'll help you pack. I'll be there. This is a very reliable person. And this is a person who, if something is going to change, they would say that something is going to change and they can no longer keep the commitment. So she, the day of packing, moving day, she did not answer her phone. She did not show up. And then later on, she told me that she was asleep, which was very strange. In that moment, I knew something was off. I was like, something is off. Something is off here, because there's no way you have been so reliable all these years, and then all of a sudden you fell asleep and you didn't update me. That was really weird. So I ended up finding out that her exact words in that situation was, let her man help her, right? So there is a part of this story that the timeline was a little bit off. When I got the phone call from Jill about what had happened, this was actually after I moved into the new apartment. Okay, that part of the timeline, I needed to shift that. It was after I moved into the apartment. I got the phone call, we had the conversation. And let me tell you what I did in that situation. I am close with Jack and Jill, and I was like, the three of us are really close. One of us is having some type of distress in this situation. If she's telling you that I did these things that are not true, or completely remodeled the story to fit a certain narrative, to make me look a certain way, to make her look better, get her on the phone. Call her on three-way. Call her on three-way, because even if Jill was the one that was twisting things or making things up, I was going to expose everybody on the spot. Everything was going to be put into the open. So I said, call her on three-way. So Jill called Jack on three-way, and we had a conversation about it. And I'm like, Jack, whose idea was it for us to move in together? Jack said it was mine. I came to you. Okay, one thing checked off. And then we went down the list of lies, and we went down the list of twists, and we went down the list of things that she manufactured to make me look crazy and to make herself look better. We went through that whole conversation on three-way with Jill. And eventually, she didn't try to deny anything, by the way. She just, I guess, kind of didn't have a choice, because we're both there. Don't be crazy. And ended up ultimately apologizing on that phone call. This was leading into the holidays. I ended up hosting everybody, having everybody over. I cooked eventually, and we were cool, right? I was like, all right, she apologized. This is someone I'm very close to. I value this relationship. I want to have a relationship with this person. Let's move forward. However, this relationship can't ever be the same, because there's a thing here that indicates that you are capable of this, or you would actually take action and do this type of thing to someone you're close to. So noted, right? I made a note of that. And we continued with our relationship. And we continued. And about, I want to say 1 year later, another thing happened. Another thing came up. This time it was a betrayal that, it's a story that I'm not going to get into, but it was a betrayal that made me understand fully that I allowed a snake to stay next to me and I could have been hurt. I was in danger that whole time. And when I say I was in danger, I don't mean, oh, I probably could have been killed or whatever. But here's the thing. When you have a snake around you, when you have someone around you who is willing to throw you under the bus when you had no business being under the bus, who is willing to defame your name, who is willing to destroy, assassinate your character to make themselves look good in situations where it was completely unwarranted. Nobody asked you that story. You just decided to put that story out there. No one came to you and said, hey, are you okay? What's going on with you? You decided to make a phone call and create that story and consciously hurt me. You did that with your eyes open. You did that intentionally. You knew exactly what the outcome could potentially be, and you let it happen. Now, when the second thing happened a year later, I was like, okay. That first thing kind of felt like an isolated situation, even though I had ended up learning about way more things that happened behind my back that kind of made me look at this person crazy. Like, you are the closest person to me. You sit next to me. We've done so many things together. And it's mind-blowing. It's wild to think that somebody could be sitting right next to you and having those ill feelings towards you when you have done nothing to them. And I'm telling you right now, I have had open conversations with this person asking, are we good? Because we ended up years prior deciding that we were going to take our relationship to the next level, like become closer. And when we did that, I was like, listen, if we've ever gone through anything, if I've ever said anything, if I've ever done anything with the type of relationship that we're about to have, we're going to be closer. I just want to clear anything up. Are we good? Anything that you want to tell me, I don't have anything to tell you. We're cool. And we just went into this amazing relationship with me thinking everything was all good, not understanding that this person was harboring I don't know what. I'm not about to speculate and come up with, well, my mom definitely, told me, well, I think this is what happened. But I never ran with any of those things because I don't know. I mean, basic human psychology, you would probably say, well, I think this is probably what's happening with that person. I'm not even going to use those words to describe that person or speculate what Jack was feeling or going through. That's for her to process and figure out and come to peace with within herself, because I ain't do nothing to that person. And for her to put all that stuff out and do it consciously, it means, baby, you got some things that you need to work through. You need to figure some things out. Okay, baby, that's on you. But the second thing happened. And when it happened, I was like, all right, this is it. I am not about to allow you to do a third thing and for this to be on another level, because at this point, I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe. And safety is a big thing for me, especially if you're in my inner circle and you're close to me. I need to feel confident that I can close my eyes and go to sleep next to you, and you're not going to turn and look at me with some scruffy face, or you're not going to cut my throat. So I cut her off. It was swift. It was harsh, and I don't feel bad about that. I don't feel bad about it. I was really hurt. It was a painful situation for me. It took me a while to process that pain. And even though it was painful and it took a while to process it, I was still moving on with my life, going about my day. I wasn't calling anybody up. And just to kind of add a little bit more to this picture. Jill wasn't the only person who was given this false information. Multiple people had this false information, and those people still are walking around with that false information, because I was not about to pick up the phone and call anybody and clear anything up and try to paint her a certain way. I just left it at that. I was like, you know what? In this situation, I am going to have to allow this group of people to think what they want. And I could tell that this was happening because certain people in that group, the way they were moving with me before, dead. Don't hear from them. Everything. And I was like, I don't even know what else y'all were told, but this person made those choices, and I cut that relationship off in a really quick, simple way, but it was harsh, and I'm fine with that. I am completely cool with the way that I did that. Like I said, at the moment I was in pain. And why do I think she did all of that? I again don't want to speculate on her feelings, but I am aware of one thing about this person's personality, is that she wants what she wants. This is a spoiled person. And I think in that moment when she didn't get what she wanted, she was like, I am going to scorch the earth because I didn't get what I want. And I'm going to throw this little tantrum. And you know what? Ultimately destroy the relationship. I don't think she intended to destroy the relationship. I don't think she intended to do that, because she did not think that information will come back to me. She didn't think I would find out. And she was perfectly comfortable with having her feelings and doing all those things and sitting next to me and being in my home, and I'm wrapped up tight with her and we're doing all these things and my business, my personal stuff. And she was comfortable with that. And that's my definition of a snake in a relationship. That's my definition of a snake. It's that silent, crawling, slithering, but I'll bite you and it's deadly. And I am not comfortable with that type of energy. Like I said, she was perfectly fine going through whatever she was going through on the inside. And maybe she never said anything to me about what was being bothered, because this was all happening inside of her. This was all her thing. And she was perfectly cool being in a relationship, sitting next to somebody feeling that way. I'm not that girl. If I'm not comfortable with you, I'm not sitting next to you. If I don't feel safe, I don't want to be in your radar. If there's something going on between us, I want to talk about it. I want to have discussions. I don't do elephants in rooms. I don't do weird vibe, like that passive aggressive thing that people do. Oh, I have a problem with her, but we don't ever talk about it, but we talk to other people about it. And guys, maybe that's why I don't have a gang of girls walking around with me, because I'm very particular and protective of my space. And you know what? There was a time when I would look at other people go through wild stuff with each other, like backstabbing, betrayals with each other, and they were cool with still being in these relationships and bickering and talking with other people, but they're still hanging out. They're still, traveling together, but then they'll go off and talk behind each other's backs. And I'm not going to lie, there was a moment when I looked at people like that and thought, what is it that they have that I don't? Like, what is it that they're able to do that I can't? Because I felt like a quitter in relationships. Like, the moment there was some type of infraction, I'm like, I'm out. Like, this cut off. That's how I've always been. And I looked at those people and felt like they had some type of extra, like stamina or tolerance or a level of love that I haven't tapped into. And I said this to somebody before, and the person responded to me and said, no, I think those people just don't have boundaries, And I agree with that. That could be true. The only thing about my boundaries that I would say that I'm not always proud of is the fact that sometimes my boundaries could be really sharp and really high. And I'm not proud of it, but I'm okay with it. I am not about to beat myself up because I've had a specific sum of experiences that have manifested into who and what I am today. It's done, it's happened, I'm here. The things that I'm not proud of, I have the tools and the ability, the capabilities to pivot, to switch, to evolve, to learn, to change. So um, I'm comfortable with where I'm at the moment. What about you guys? And I also want to know if you guys have had situations where you felt like there was a snake in your relationship. How did y'all deal with that? You have to let me know. Make sure that we have this conversation and you tap in with me, because I'm always curious to know about how people deal with things that I've dealt with and I've experienced. So talkwithnola@gmail.com. Email me. Let me know what your snake in relationship story was and how you dealt with it. So I want to find out what I know that you don't know. Have you guys ever experienced floating? Have you experienced floating? I'm not talking about hovering over the ground, not some exorcist type of energy. I'm talking about facilities that have pods. Some of them are shaped kind of like eggs. And I experienced this as a birthday gift in 2021, I think it was. And my gosh, what an experience. So I went to the facility. It's kind of like a spa type of environment. And you go in, you make sure that your body is clean, no lotion, no makeup, nothing. And the experience that I had, I went into a room that was dimly lit, right? There was the flotation device, I guess you can call it, with water. The water has a certain amount of salt in it that allows the body to float. When you go into the water, the idea is you kind of just have to let go and trust that you're going to float. Because that was a part of the thing for me. I was like, am I gonna float? But it didn't take me too long to get acclimated to just, I'm like, if they're telling me it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. If there was a chance that I would sink, they would say that. There's no way that I'm in danger, and nothing of danger was mentioned. So I'm like, let me just do it. So I went in. The first thing I did was lie back in the water to make sure that I would float. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm floating. All right, I'm good. So I sat back up to figure out how I wanted the experience to be. So I had multiple options. First, I could have this starlit type of thing, or I could have it completely dark. Or I could have music, or I could have it completely quiet. Me being the person that I am, I turned the music off and I opted for complete darkness. I don't think I would do that the next time around. So now I closed it. I am in complete darkness. I am in complete quiet. You hear nothing. And after a while, you no longer feel the water, because the water is the exact temperature of your body. So I'm feeling nothing, I'm hearing nothing, I'm floating. And it kind of felt like there are these little moments where I'll do like a little swish just to make sure that I'm still in there in that water. And it kind of felt like you're in the middle of the ocean, or you're in the middle of outer space, or you're on a cloud and you see nothing. You look left, you look right, you look up, nothing, just darkness. And it's an interesting experience because it forces you to understand where you are mentally, emotionally, energetically in that moment. And boy, did I learn a lot. The first thing that happened was, I started, I'm like, this is great. This feels amazing. This is my type of thing. I don't feel anything. I'm weightless. I'm just enjoying this. And then about the duration of the whole thing, I believe, was 1 hour. About 15-20 minutes in, I'm guessing in my head at this point, this is how long it's been. I'm like, all right, I have to get out of this because I need to go do something else. And it's like I have this duel going on in my head, right? There's this anxious, you have to get out, you have to go do something. And then there's the other voice that's saying, you have nothing to do, chill. You came into this pod for a reason, relax, chill, do it, stay, get to know yourself. And then there's the, oh my gosh, I want to check my phone. When many of us, during our day-to-day, our phones are always with us. We do everything on the phone. I keep my show notes on the phone. I keep everything on my phone, work related. And that means you're constantly reaching for it. Sometimes I'm not even thinking about my phone, but it's like my hand has a mind of its own and my hand will just reach for it. You wake up in the morning, I keep my phone far away from the bed so I don't wake up in the morning and reach for it as the first thing. I despise having that wake up in the morning and reach for the phone and the first thing that I'm experiencing is what's happening in other people's heads, right? So I had to fight the urge to have this moment where I don't have something to reach for. I don't have something to distract me from my thoughts. I don't have something to distract me from my feelings. I don't have something that's going to soothe me for whatever reason I needed soothing for, right? And it was just all of that anxious energy in that pod. And after, and I'm not saying that I was in there panicking or moving around. It was just, I was still. I was still quiet. My eyes were still closed. All of this is happening in my head. And I am aware of the back and forth, the pull, the push to stick it out, enjoy it. And it was a birthday thing. I don't remember if that was on my birthday, but the plan was for my man to pick me up and for us to go have dinner after. So how they set it up at the facility is when you come out of the pod, they give you a moment to reflect. They'll give you tea. There's this like really super cute, comfortable lounge area where you can go, you can be barefoot, you can just hang out. And even though there are different people there, nobody is really interacting with each other because I think most people are coming out with this experience where they're like, yo, I need a moment, right? So I came out and I took that moment to decompress and I just sat there like a ball of emotions and a plethora of thoughts and different realizations and revelations and different things in that moment happening. And there was a little bit of disappointment. Like I really thought I was going to go in there and be chill and calm the whole time. Am I really that girl who's attached to her phone and want to move on to the next activity and can't sit still for 1 hour in complete darkness in this water? And it made me realize that years prior, when I could sit there and meditate in quiet, that those times are no longer there. I was no longer in touch with doing that anymore. And I thought that I would be able to go in based on that. I was like, oh, I've meditated. I've gotten up to meditating for 45 minutes, an hour. I could do that. I've sat there in quiet and meditated for a very long time. This is fine. But between the time when I meditated for an hour and the time when I went into that pod, a whole lot had happened, right? There was a lot of engagement with technology, overworking, so much had happened. I had lost touch with that. And being in that pod made me realize, girl, you have lost touch. And this wasn't a bad experience. This was revelation. This was a realization. This was an opportunity to get back in touch. And I used it as such. And I'm sitting in the lounge area just thinking about all these things. So then he came in to pick me up. And he was like, you good? And I'm like, I can't talk right now. I'm like, I can't talk. I can't. I cannot engage with anybody. I cannot speak. Just It was just wild. So we walked down to the restaurant, and as we're sitting in the restaurant, I still can't talk. I cannot express a thing. The amount of time that I needed to come down from that experience and just to make peace with what I revealed to myself in there. I was sitting at that dinner table with tears just running down my face. I was just crying, not because of the disappointment or anything like that. It's just the feelings that came up. It's just the emotions that I had to face. I was like, girl, you are not okay. You got to tackle this, because there's no way I am walking around with those things inside of me, those feelings, those emotions in my organs, in my blood, in my hormones, and expect to be okay in the long run. This is not sustainable. And I was happy that I had that experience so that I could release that stuff. So it happened. And I knew that I had work to do. I knew the exact type of work that I needed to do. And I was grateful for that experience. But we sat there at dinner and we didn't talk because I was going through it. And eventually, of course, we talked. Of course, if you ever heard me talk about him, no matter what I'm going through, he's supportive, and he was patient. He was supportive with that. And I'm excited to do floating again. So are you guys familiar with floating? Have you done it? Did you know about it? In this segment, the SOA Q&A, my producer, Shot of Adrenaline, will ask me introspective questions that I have to answer. And I'm ready. The only rule with this game is I have to repeat the question, then answer. So let's go. What's the most difficult thing I've ever done in the name of love? Look at myself. Look at myself and admit to myself when I was the problem. It's one thing to say, you, point the finger, blame the other person. But when you have to look at yourself, honey, and admit your stuff and implement tools to pivot and shift so you have a better relationship. Yeah, that's a hard one. And I've done that romantically. I've done that in family. I've definitely done it with my son. What do I highly recommend to most people I meet? Go eat at the Hills Restaurant in Brooklyn, our sponsor, 4706 Church Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, 11203. Amazing, delicious Caribbean Guyanese food. Thank me later. Would I want my life story to be told on the big screen or a mini series? I like the idea of a series because there's so much in my story and it spans a significant amount of time that I feel we might need time to just, flesh it out and put it all out there. So a mini series sounds cool. Thanks for the idea. What assumption have I made that went hilariously wrong? Probably. It's probably during those times when I gave myself more credit than I needed to. Just conceited, mixed with arrogance, mixed with I guess the type of energy where you want to express that you're the smartest person in the room, you know what I mean? I went through an era like that in my 20s and it went wrong because I was wrong. And it shows up when, people are like, no, you're not. And then you have to admit it. So yeah, definitely. All right, so today's happy habit. Why do I do this happy habit segment? Because a lot of people believe these really, really big, magnificent things have to happen in their lives for them to say that they're experiencing joy or that they're experiencing happiness. It doesn't work like that. It's those tiny little moments, those decisions that you make that actually bring you joy. What are you doing? So I like to focus on little moments, and this is what happy habit is all about. So one happy habit that I would share with you is treating people well. Treat people good. You know how people always say, treat people the way you want to be treated. I don't always agree with that, because some people, they don't treat themselves well. Some people don't want to be treated well. It sounds crazy, but it's true. So treat people well, period. Treat people how they want to be treated. Be polite, be honest, be graceful, all the things. You guys know exactly what you need to do to treat people good. And you know what happens? You end up feeling good. You end up feeling happiness when you can look at another person and see them smiling, see them thriving, see them just feeling good. And it's because of you. It makes you feel good. That's a really, really solid habit that I like to practice. And it brings me joy. And that's it.
Thank you for tuning in to the thenolaroexperien podcast. Created and hosted by Nola, produced by Take Action Media, theme song by Mr. Melee, sponsored by The Hills Restaurant, Brooklyn, New York. Listen to us on all podcast platforms and follow us on social media at the thenolaroexperien podcast. Visit thenolaroexperiencepodcast.com and connect with us via email at talkwithnola@gmail.com.